In order to understand how the allegations against Michael Jackson in the Leaving Neverland documentary were concocted, we need to take a step back and unroot a name that not many are familiar with: Victor Gutierrez. Since the 90s, Victor Gutierrez has influenced the media by providing false information and fake news about Michael Jackson, to the point that he is credited as the source of several yellow journalists who made a career bashing and slandering Jackson. The most prominent media personality connected to Victor Gutierrez is Diane Diamond, who defined him one of her best sources and someone about whom she never had a doubt. Another journalist who used Victor Gutierrez's false stories against Michael Jackson is Maureen Orth, who in 2003 wrote a salacious article on Vanity Fair based on Gutierrez's fictitious information. Eventually, Gutierrez's pedo-apologist narrative found its place in Leaving Neverland, the slanderous movie against Michael Jackson recently premiered at Sundance Festival and set to be broadcasted on HBO, Channel 4 and several other European networks. But who is Victor Gutierrez? Victor Gutierrez is a Chilean freelance writer who lived in the US in the 80s and for a good part of the 90s. In a 2005 interview given to the German daily newspaper Tageszeitung, he stated that, in 1986, he attended the NAMBLA 10th International Membership Conference in Los Angeles, California. NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, is a pedophilia and pederasty advocacy organization in the United States. It works to abolish age of consent laws criminalizing adult sexual involvement with minors, and campaigns for the release of men who have been jailed for sexual contacts with minors that did not involve coercion. Gutierrez first stated that he took part in the NAMBLA conference as a freelance writer, while in an interview he gave to GQ in September 2008, he changed version and declared that he was undercover with the LAPD. Contacted, the LAPD stated that Gutierrez had never worked for them. According to former FBI agent Bob Hamer, who infiltrated NAMBLA, he was not allowed to attend a conference until he had been a member of the association for 3 years, and sponsored directly by another active duty member.
Tell us about you infiltrating this group.
Actually, the infiltration was fairly easy. They had a website. I paid $35. I joined the group. They sent me a letter praising me for my courageous step in joining the organization. I began to get emails from them. I subscribed to their magazine. They started to send me their magazine, but they wouldn't allow me to attend any of their secret underground meetings until I'd been a member for 3 years and had been sponsored by another active duty member.
The same strict rules are confirmed by NAMBLA's official constitution. Victor Gutierrez states that it was during that NAMBLA conference that he heard boy lovers speak of Michael Jackson as being one of them, and hoping to use his name for the goal of their social acceptance. Please notice, Michael Jackson was never associated with NAMBLA at all. If Gutierrez has attended the NAMBLA conference, it is fair to guess that he could be or might have been a NAMBLA member, or at least very close to the association. In his 1996 book Michael Jackson Was My Lover, a lurid and imaginary tale allegedly based on Jordan Chandler's secret diary, Gutierrez promoted NAMBLA's agenda, not only declaring his respect and admiration for the association in the author's notes, but also normalizing sex between adults and minors as a display of some twisted form of consensual love. The book contains extremely graphic descriptions of alleged sexual acts not only between Jackson and Chandler, but also between Jackson and other boys. And, specifically, boys who have adamantly stated that the singer has never molested them or touched them in any sexual or inappropriate way. The same graphic descriptions are carbon copied in Leaving Neverland. Gutierrez's book is a slanderous and dirty pedopornographic tale allegedly based on the secret diary of Jordan Chandler. However, Jordan Chandler never kept a diary, as confirmed by his own uncle, who defined Gutierrez as a sleazebag. If it had existed, the diary would have represented massive evidence during the Chandler allegations. But it did not. As a matter of fact, Gutierrez himself was not able to explain where the diary was, how it came into his possession. Produce the diary. According to attorney Steve Cochran, there are certainly signs in Gutierrez's book that lead one to believe he was in contact with the Chandlers. But Gutierrez had a different agenda than the Chandlers. His story is not that of a victim. His story is a love story that was ruined by the evil prejudice of society and the greed of the parents. Gutierrez used the Chandlers and then went with his own agenda. But what is Gutierrez's agenda? According to the book credits, where he thanks Nambla, Gutierrez seems to advocate pedophilia as something that is not harmful to children but misunderstood by society, and he uses the Chandler allegations in support of his point. Gutierrez writes, which is exactly the narrative currently spun in the Leaving Neverland documentary, whose graphic descriptions seem to have been extracted directly from Gutierrez's book, up until the last detail, and whose loving relationship between an adult man and a boy is pushed in the viewer's face, as suggested by several statements by director Dan Reed. Like this one. But we'll return to this in other videos on this channel and other informative channels, with plenty of details. Based on documents from Evan Chandler included in Michael Jackson Was My Lover, it is very possible that Gutierrez and Evan Chandler might have worked together to concoct the false allegations against Michael Jackson, in 1993, as legal correspondence, letters belonging to the Chandlers and private photographs of Jordan, his room, and the Chandlers' house are included in the publication. It is however ascertained that Gutierrez befriended the Chandlers' maid, Norma Salinas, so those documents could have been provided by her. However, Gutierrez's book also contains stories, with varying details, identical to entries that appear in Ray Chandler's All That Glitters, a book which was published almost 10 years after Gutierrez's publication. Per his own admission, Gutierrez started gravitating around people who were in Michael Jackson's life since his participation to the NAMBLA conference. Gutierrez has no problem lying about his meetings, such as when he describes his alleged chance encounter with Wade Robson and his mother Joy on Venice Beach. According to Gutierrez, Wade was dancing in the street begging for money to buy some bread with it, which is obviously not true. Victor Gutierrez can be linked to several people who sold sordid false stories about Michael Jackson to the tabloids, such as Blanca Francia, Adrian McManus, and Ralph Kishon, who, very conveniently, all follow the narrative described in Gutierrez's book. Former security guard Ralph Kishon testified he and other ex-employees of Jackson spoke to Gutierrez before they went to sell their story to the Star magazine. Former security guard Qasim Abdul testified that he met Gutierrez once, and they had a 2 or 3 hours conversation. Former maid Adrian McManus testified that Gutierrez was going to try to help them in their lawsuit, and so on. It is important to notice that all these stories sold to the tabloids by these individuals have been debunked as false. From the GQ article. The 36 guest rooms at Neverland is, of course, another lie from Gutierrez. According to GQ magazine, Victor Gutierrez began persecuting Michael Jackson with renewed vigor, when he discovered his friendship with Jordan Chandler and his family. It is fair to at least assume that Gutierrez got in contact with Jordan's father, Evan, as well. It is, on the other hand, confirmed that Gutierrez knew Blanca Francia personally. It's no surprise that he was one of the first people interviewed by the LAPD in 1993. According to journalist Roger Friedman during Michael Jackson's trial in 2005. It is important to notice that Blanca Francia is a perjurer who sold stories to the press, and her version of events was completely debunked in court. As a matter of fact, there were no facts at all in anything Gutierrez reported, and that was why the authorities did not officially use any of his information, despite relying on his book during the 2005 trial, at least according to journalist Maureen Orth, who, herself, gave credit to the fictional tale for her article published in 2003 on Vanity Fair. Since the 90s, Victor Gutierrez found his place in the media, always intent in dragging Michael Jackson through the mud by publishing the most slanderous and salacious news, made of exaggerations, best-case scenario, or completely fabricated stories. One of the journalists who worked in direct contact with Gutierrez for a very long time was Diane Diamond, who through the years has made it a point of building her career bashing Michael Jackson with the most inventive stories. Diamond's use of Gutierrez's narrative was extensive. She presented his fantasies on TV as facts. She read his fictional book. She published his stories in the press with no qualm whatsoever. She actively helped spread fake news about Michael Jackson. The first time the wider public heard Gutierrez's name in connection with the Michael Jackson case was on January 9, 1995, when Diane Diamond announced on KABC-AM radio's popular morning show that the police had reopened their investigation against Jackson because of an alleged 27-minute videotape, captured by one of the star's security cameras, supposedly depicting acts of molestation. Diamond painted a very vivid picture of what was on the tape, despite the fact that she had not seen it herself, attributing the story to one of her best sources. Gutierrez himself subsequently made an appearance on Diamond's TV show Hard Copy, despite having received a letter from Jackson's lawyer, Howard Weitzman, disproving the tape story as false. And it was indeed complete fabrication. The alleged sex tape never existed. However, it is not surprising that the same narrative, albeit slightly modified for the occasion, is now being spread by Leaving Neverland's director, Dan Reed. According to Reed, James Safechuck, main star of the movie with his pal Wade Robson, spoke about a sex tape Jackson supposedly had made, but that, very conveniently, was later destroyed. Just as conveniently, the tape is not mentioned in Safechuck's civil lawsuit against Jackson, nor in the movie. In 1995, the other sex tape had allegedly been viewed only by Victor Gutierrez, and the boy whom Gutierrez claimed was being molested on the tape was Jermaine Jackson's son and Michael Jackson's nephew, Jeremy Jackson. Jeremy Jackson's mother, Margaret Maldonado, debunked the fake news in her book Jackson Family Values.
There was no tape. Michael never paid me for my silence. He had never molested Jeremy. Period.
Michael Jackson sued both Diane Diamond and Victor Gutierrez for slander, and while the former managed to escape unscathed with the help of her friend, District Attorney Tom Sneddon, and the Shield Law, the latter was ordered to pay Jackson $2.7 million in damages. Gutierrez never paid, instead fled back to Chile and later filed bankruptcy. Through the years, Gutierrez has helped concocting or straight-up fabricating many false abuse stories against Jackson. Another example? He claimed that Jackson was investigated by the FBI for molesting 2 Mexican boys. However, the story is debunked as false by the same FBI, in the files released about the artist. When Michael Jackson was accused of molesting Gavin Arvizo, in 2004, Gutierrez became once again very active in the media and assisted in the making of slanderous documentaries about Jackson. Apparently, the people who employed him as an expert on the allegations against Jackson did not find his history, the fact that he was court-ordered to pay Jackson $2.7 million for lying about him, the pedophiliac theme of his book, or his apparent association with NAMBLA problematic. In a September 2006 British GQ article about Gutierrez, it is claimed he was even engaged to work on Martin Bashir's Jackson documentary. During the Jackson trial in 2005, Victor Gutierrez was also included in the credit list of NBC Datelines Inside the Jackson Case program as a consulting producer. Victor Gutierrez's pedophilia-driven narrative is also exploited in the 2007 movie What Really Happened by producer Jacques Peretti, broadcasted on Channel 4, where two of the main characters are, once again, Diane Dimond and her right-hand Gutierrez. They even make their appearance in the movie together, as main players in a vilification campaign, and are emphasized as inseparable. Peretti's movie was so one-sided and agenda-driven that an independent viewer summarized it as follows. The film seems to make it a point to accumulate all possible lies made about Jackson for decades and spread them as truths, possibly in the hope of a complete character assassination. Please notice, the same Channel 4 is now set to broadcast Leaving Neverland in the UK. Gutierrez's narrative now seems to make its appearance again in Leaving Neverland, the 2019 movie by Dan Reed, offering a platform to self-admitted perjurers Wade Robson and James Safechuck, without any independent voice or basic right to defense for Michael Jackson, who, being deceased, is no longer protected by law and can be slandered, as slander does not apply to the dead. It is unsurprising to notice that in 2014, when Safechuck, contradicting his own previous sworn declaration in defense of Jackson, filed a creditor claim demanding monetary damages for alleged childhood sex abuse, Diane Dimond was the first to report it, referring to sources close to the case. Many examples in Safechuck's second amended complaint show a disturbing and overwhelming resemblance between his allegations and Victor Gutierrez's pro-pedophilia book. One specific comparison between Safechuck allegations and Gutierrez's pedo-fantasies will follow, although the matter will be explored thoroughly in upcoming new videos. From Gutierrez's book, page 79. The boy involved in this alleged abuse scene is Brett Barnes, who up to this day adamantly denies any wrongdoing whatsoever by his close friend Michael Jackson, and who, after Robson's allegations became public, tweeted this. The same scene, in the same page of the book, is then referred to Jordan Chandler. However, on October 1993 the same Jordan Chandler debunked Gutierrez's sick fantasy while talking to Dr. Richard Gardner. Neither Brett nor Jordan ever claimed they were ever together in Jackson's suite, let alone being molested together. However, very conveniently the exact same scene is reported in Safechuck lawsuit, down to the last detail. In conclusion, the false allegations against Michael Jackson seem to all have at least one element in common: Victor Gutierrez, a man who has expressed disturbing views about pedophilia, written a graphically sexual work of fiction, replete with pedophiliac fantasies about an alleged mutual relationship between a man and a child, had the audacity to thank NAMBLA in his book, and who, by his own account, visited a NAMBLA conference in 1986.
am not going to do anything sexual to a child. It's not where my heart is. I will slit my wrist first. I would never do anything like that. That's not Michael Jackson, I'm sorry. That's someone else.